Welcome to the Hoja on Architecture podcast. Vernacular Architecture Beyond Earth, Chapter 8, Habitat Reflective Design in Space. In the previous episode, we spoke of form, the visible geometry of survival. Yet form alone does not make life. Architecture begins when space is lived in, when walls hold warmth, when movement acquires rhythm, and when the inhabitant leaves traces of self within the structure. This episode turns inward, from the geometry of settlements to the intimacy of daily life. We ask, what does it mean to dwell on Mars? On Earth, the notion of dwelling goes beyond shelter. Vernacular houses were never static enclosures. They were frameworks for living. The courtyard was not designed. It was discovered through routine. Where light fell best, where voices gathered, where breeze moved gently. Architecture grew around daily gestures. The hearth, the mat, the window, the threshold, each formed part of an unspoken choreography. Building, dwelling, and thinking were inseparable. On Mars, that trinity must be rediscovered, for living in space is not simply a technical act of containment, it is a cultural act of presence. A habitat on Mars will initially prioritize survival needs, including pressure control, radiation shielding, and oxygen circulation. But once those needs are met, the question of living well begins. What does comfort mean in a world without open air, wind, or rain? Vernacular architecture teaches that comfort is relational rather than absolute. It arises not only from technology but also from proportion, rhythm, and touch. The challenge for space architects is to create the same sense of lived familiarity within entirely artificial conditions. Everyday life on Mars will take place within sealed interiors, yet even an enclosure can host variation. The design of microclimates will define well-being. Vernacular dwellings have always incorporated these elements: the shaded patio, the cool stone floor, and the warm alcove near the fire. On Mars, microclimate design becomes both a necessity and an art form. Lighting cycles mimic dawn and dusk, surfaces moderate warmth through phase change materials, and walls breathe in and release moisture. Architecture itself will become atmosphere. Psychologically, the habitat must strike a balance between isolation and intimacy. On Earth, people escape their rooms by stepping outdoors. On Mars, outside is lethal. Therefore, interior diversity becomes survival. Spaces must offer alternation: tightness and release, quiet and sociability, darkness and glow. Vernacular houses mastered this alternation. Narrow corridors opening into generous courtyards, low doorways leading to airy halls. The same principle applies in space architecture. A sequence of compression and expansion gives rhythm to movement, allowing the body to feel both protected and free. Without it, the mind withers. Lighting plays a central role in sustaining this rhythm. The cycle of light is the cycle of time itself. In vernacular houses, day entered gradually, through screens, lattices, or filtered courtyards. On Mars, the absence of atmospheric diffusion means that sunlight is brutally direct. Designers must therefore compose time through light. Artificial illumination will simulate dawn and dusk, projecting color temperatures that support circadian balance. Over time, these modulated glows will not only sustain physiology, but also give rise to new aesthetic traditions, a distinct light culture unique to Mars. Sound, too, must be designed. Vernacular interiors were full of soft echoes: the crackle of fire, the murmur of neighbors, the hum of insects. Silence, paradoxically, was never absolute. It was textured. In the pressurized hush of a Martian dome, silence can become oppressive. Architecture must introduce gentle soundscapes, featuring air circulation tuned to harmonic frequencies, surfaces that resonate faintly, and communal areas where music fills the void. Acoustics, once a byproduct of material, will become a deliberate component of well-being. Privacy and community form another essential dialectic. A Martian habitat is both home and workplace, both refuge and laboratory. Spatial zoning will define psychological boundaries: private capsules for rest, shared atria for conversation, and flexible in-between zones for spontaneous gatherings. Vernacular settlements already solved this problem. The Ottoman sofa, the Japanese engawa, the Mediterranean veranda, all mediated between inside and outside, self and society. On Mars, where every meter of pressurized volume costs energy, such thresholds must be designed with care. Architecture will teach new forms of politeness, new distances of respect. Domestic routines will sculpt the interior architecture. Cooking, eating, sleeping, tending plants, each action has spatial implications. Vernacular architecture evolved through these gestures. The kitchen was where smoke escaped, the courtyard where grain dried, the window where one watched the street. On Mars, routines will differ, but the principle remains: habit produces habitat. Spaces that encourage daily rituals will stabilize community life. Even the act of cleaning dust from filters may become a ritual of renewal, echoing the way villagers once swept courtyards at dawn. Materiality will continue to anchor emotion. We have already seen that Martian materials, regolith, ice, biopolymers, carry unique tactile and visual qualities. Inside the habitat, these must be softened and humanized. Warm-toned surfaces, varied textures, and natural patterns will serve as substitutes for the absence of nature. Small-scale details such as woven fabrics, wooden analogs, and soft curves will ground the senses. Vernacular architecture understood this intimately. A niche, a carpet, a piece of pottery could humanize an entire room. On Mars, such gestures will hold civilization together. Yet beyond comfort lies meaning. A habitat is not only lived in, it is remembered. Every dwelling accumulates memory through traces: a scuff on the floor, a mark on the wall, a view repeated daily. Over the years, these repetitions turn space into a story. Vernacular homes wear their history openly: the pattern of use, the layering of repair, the quiet evidence of care. On Mars, where materials may be synthetic and surfaces replaceable, architecture must be designed with memory in mind. This could mean digital archives integrated into walls, or physical signs of wear intentionally preserved. The goal is continuity, a sense that time leaves a gentle footprint. Daily life also needs celebration. Work, rest, and ritual must find spatial rhythm. Communal dining, storytelling, or art making can occur in reconfigurable halls, spaces that shift function according to the colony's calendar. Vernacular societies often aligned festivals with the environment, such as harvest festivals following rain or feasts marking the completion of construction. Mars will inspire its own temporal ceremonies: the anniversary of landing, the first bloom in a greenhouse, the alignment of Earth overhead. Architecture must frame these moments with dignity, offering places of gathering that connect individuals to shared time. At a deeper level, the concept of home will evolve. On Earth, home is often tied to inheritance and immobility. On Mars, it will mean adaptability. Habitats will expand, reconfigure, and migrate. Families may inhabit modular clusters that detach and recombine. The vernacular idea of belonging through building will persist, but building will be reversible. Home will become a process rather than a place, an ongoing act of care. This redefinition of dwelling carries ethical weight. If every cubic meter of habitat demands energy and labor, space itself becomes a moral resource. To inhabit responsibly means to maintain, share, and repair. Vernacular builders lived by similar ethics: building only as needed, repairing before replacing, sharing tools and walls. In the vacuum of another world, this old wisdom returns as necessity. Sustainability becomes spirituality. The aesthetics of everyday life will complete this moral cycle. Beauty will no longer mean luxury, but coherence, the alignment of material, use, and emotion. A room lit correctly, proportioned humanely, and resonating gently will embody aesthetic appeal. Vernacular builders achieve this instinctively, shaping harmony through empathy. Martian designers must learn to do the same consciously, translating survival into serenity. Over time, these habitats will cease to feel experimental. They will mature into culture. Decorations will appear, furniture will carry stories, and plants will mark anniversaries. What began as a shelter will become civilization's most miniature museum. Each habitat will contain within it a fragment of the human condition, our need to arrange, to repair, to remember. The architecture of everyday life is nothing less than the architecture of humanity. To dwell is to continue history in a new place. The vernacular village once taught us how to live with the earth. Now the Martian habitat will teach us how to live beyond it. Architecture will remain our most faithful companion, the vessel through which routine becomes ritual and survival becomes home. In the next episode, we turn to vernacular futures to ask what lessons the red planet sends back to the blue one. The village has always been our theater of life. Now it becomes our habitat of meaning among the stars. This concludes Chapter 8 of Vernacular Architecture Beyond Earth, Habitat Reflective Design in Space. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.